Welcome to the Customer Wins podcast, where business leaders discuss their secrets and techniques for helping their customers succeed and in turn grow their business.
Hi, I'm Rich Walker, the host of the Customer Wins, where I talk to business leaders about how they help their customers win and how their focus on customer experience leads to growth. Some of our past guests have included Charlie Clark of FP Alpha, Chrissy Myers of Associated Underwriters Insurance, and Valerie Vest of Cambridge Investment Research. Today, I'm speaking with David Crow, president of Axos Clearing. And today's episode is brought to you by Quick, the leader in enterprise forms processing. When your business relies upon processing forms, don't waste your team's valuable time manually reviewing the forms. Instead, get Quick. Using our Form Extract API, simply submit your completed forms and get back clean, context-rich data that is 99.9% accurate. Visit quickforms.com to get started. All right, I'm really excited to introduce today's guest. David Crow serves as the head of Axos Clearing, where his focus revolves around enabling business leaders to anticipate future challenges and opportunities. With a career spanning 25 years in various financial service roles, David's expertise lies in providing forward-looking guidance to optimize, scale, and transform organization. David leads his team at Axos Clearing with a dedication to understanding each client's unique challenges and crafting tailored solutions to address them effectively. This is why you're on the show, David. David thrives on collaboration and attentive listening. He's active within industry groups such as INFMA and the Chicago Bond Club, and he is also a frequent public speaker at industry events. David, welcome to the Customer Wins.
Rich, good morning. I'm excited to be here. Really, really grateful. Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation. So for those who haven't heard this podcast before, I love to talk to business leaders about what they're doing to help their customers win, how they built and deliver a great customer experience, and the challenges to growing their own company. And I know Axos is doing that. So David, let's start with understanding your business a little better. How does your company help people?
Yeah, Rich, thanks very much. I think, first and foremost, it's really about understanding the client. As you said in my bio, I'm really passionate about listening and leaning in and listening to clients. Clearly, that's something that lots of firms and lots of people say. We have a real bias to that in our organization, and it really is an obsession that I have, and that since I've been here for just over 8 months, that we're really continuing to drive throughout the firm. And it starts, as I said, it starts with listening to clients and really understanding where they are in their life cycle of maturity. Every firm might have a similar business model, but they're not in the same place in their journey. And right. So our job as a service provider, right, is to meet them where they are, caretake their needs, and find ways to consult with them on growth. This business is challenging. This business is fraught with all kinds of regulatory challenges. And, in moments, if you're not careful, you can find inaction is the best action. But our job is to try to see around corners and help clients to really understand what best actions they can take.
All right, so let's give a little context here. Axos Financial is a big company. There's actually multiple divisions, right?
Yes, sir.
And so what is Clearing from your perspective, and who are your clients then?
Sure. Maybe just to touch on Axos Financial for a quick second, since you referenced it. So Axos Financial is the parent company, really three primary divisions, Rich. And so it's our consumer bank, which was founded in the year 2000. It's a digital online-only bank with all of the capabilities and services that you would expect, award-winning technology, products, and services. We also then have a commercial bank, which has a whole host of capabilities and opportunities. We've grown that tremendously over the last several years. And then more recently, let's say over the last 5 years, has been the building of the securities business, of which Clearing is one of the three components, parts, and pieces to that. Clearing is we caretake broker dealers and RIAs in the correspondent clearing space. They very simply introduce the business to us, where we caretake the assets, obviously clear and settle trades, and provide technology and consulting and products and services to really help them achieve their goals. It's as simple as that.
No, I love that. I love to understand that because, number one, I didn't know Axos was a bank. So I think it's good to bring that forth and help people see that. The second thing is, you said customers are in different parts of their journey, which is a nice way to say something I've felt my entire career, 20 plus years of this business, which is every broker dealer I've talked to in larger RIA firms, like, we are different. We do things differently than anybody else. And what I discover is, no, you actually don't. You have your spin on it, you have your team, but I think it's actually about the stage that they're in for why they're
Yeah.
doing it. So I'm kind of curious, how do you actually customize what you do to meet them where they are?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question, and I think, by the way, I agree with you. I think there are certainly unique points of value along the sort of value chain as we describe it, and different firms certainly have their own identities, and I think for that, obviously, it's why we all exist, right? To provide unique capabilities and services to our constituents. But the reality is we've been doing this a long time, you and I, and for 25 years, some of the problems that have been problems are still problems in
Right.
process, right? And so when we say meeting clients where they live, part of it is about what's their orientation to the world. What do I mean by that? It might mean they're owned by a large insurance company or they're owned by
Mhm.
a large bank, and we understand that the implications of that might be that they can't focus on the things that we might suggest that they focus on right now. So instead, we meet them where they are and say, well, for right now, this is sort of good enough, right? But we want to reserve the right to come back and help and provide better process or process enhancement thereafter. That'd be one example. I think other parts of that sort of decision point are change management and willingness to accept and drive transformation. Part of
Mhm.
this is about sort of your affiliation model. So if a broker dealer, for instance, has independent only advisors, from time to time, that's more difficult to drive change, right? And you have to have a carrot and a stick, as they say.
Yeah.
And so that's all part of the conversation. We just find ways to help and get creative, because in the end, adoption is critical. Strategy is great, execution is great, but adoption is what makes it all come to life.
That is so true. Man, I've had that conversation so many times. You can have the
Yeah,
best technology, you can have the best design system, but if nobody uses it, who cares? It's
yeah,
worthless to you.
that's exactly
Um,
right.
so, yeah, look, I don't like to ask my guests about their competitors per se. So don't take this as an intentional question about a competitors, but what makes you guys different? I mean, because there are the big clearing firms that
Sure.
I'm used to working with, Pershing and
Yeah.
whatever. You guys are doing something different because you're attracting customers and growing this business. What is it?
Yeah, it is at its core, clearing kind of sort of is clearing, right? And so it's not really about how we clear transactions and settle trades. It really is more about our approach. We believe, first and foremost, we believe sincerely in the hybrid broker dealer RIA model. We think it is here to stay. Facts are rampant about how it is going away, but I firmly believe there's value that continues to exist in this business model, this affiliation model. And for as long as that happens to be the case, we are absolutely going to serve the marketplace. I also think that just the sheer nature of how clients and firms grow over time, there is a feeling in the marketplace that sort of at that top tier of the middle of the market in wealth managers, that
Mhm.
there's an underserving happening, and we would like to step in and fill the gap there. We think we've got capabilities. We lead with people, right? It is about the people at the end of the day. Relationships actually do matter, and our people like talking to clients. We don't pass off people to an 800 line. So that doesn't mean we don't scale. It doesn't mean we aren't using technology to its fullest to manage cases and everything that goes with that. But we were very intentional about engaging with and staying engaged with our clients. I think that's a key differentiator. And then encircling that, Rich, with all the technology to help create efficiencies, which is still absolutely critical, is obviously a part of the storyline as well.
Yeah. So that just reminds me of a quote I read in a book back in my 20s, which was it was from a bank. If you're not talking to your customer, your competitors are. And keeping that front and center, it's actually really hard to do, frankly,
Yeah,
because you get
yeah.
so enamored with your next thing and your next thing and your next customer, you forget about the ones you're working with the most right now. So it's nice to
You're
hear that
you're
tone at the top.
Yeah, it is absolutely a tone from the top. I was going to say that your refrain there reminds me of a commercial you may recall. I don't remember what airline it is, unfortunately, but it's back in the early 90s, I think, where the CEO came in and handed airplane tickets out to his top, client engagement people. And the refrain there was, our top client left us because they didn't know us any longer. Right. And
Mm,
and I think that is such a common challenge. And again, it's one that many businesses face as they get larger. It's just the sheer fact of life. So yeah, it's something that we really believe in. Our entire leadership team is really focused on that. It is very much a cultural sort of orientation at Axos, top down.
Yeah. Okay, so in that vein, how
Yeah.
did the pandemic change how you guys interact with clients, or did it?
Yeah, it's interesting. Without a doubt, right? Technology was adopted, needed to be adopted because people went from a centralized to a decentralized workplace. But it's interesting, right? We were already, because we are, as I mentioned earlier, because the organization was digitally native, we started and are still digital. We already had all of the mechanics and the capabilities to drive, automation even in remote locations, as an example. So
Mm.
for us, to be honest, other than catching the wave of greater amounts of transactions, which certainly was true in our business, as was the case in many others, we didn't see an awful lot of change. We saw clients looking for and seeking out automation that maybe they hadn't deployed. Online access would be a great example, right? Investors were
Yeah.
seeking that more than they had in the past. But beyond that, the trends were pretty consistent with what we'd seen all along, and we continue to see clients look to adopt that because now, as we both know, workers don't want to go back into offices if they can remain and continue to have flexibility.
I'm guilty of that.
Fair, as am I. Yeah.
So let's go back to some of the innovation and tech that you guys are working with. So you've got the bank on the one side, now you're on the securities side. What are the innovations coming down the road for that?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. I feel like I'm super excited about what we are building, and it's a build. We're continuing to make great progress on this. We think that there's a real opportunity and frankly, a real need as the business has trended more towards holistic wealth management, wealth planning, and even all the way through and including budgeting and outcome management. That there's a real opportunity to meaningfully connect banking. In our case, we have an in-house retail digital bank with securities. And that combination is not more than just aggregation of information, but it actually extends to transactional information. So let me just, as an example, where we're going, Rich, is a single pane of glass for the investor and their advisor through which they look to not only aggregate accounts at, Merrill, Citi, JP, pick your favorite bank or otherwise institution. So not only aggregate the information for the purpose of that investor, like every other bank in America, right? But also then transact through that linkage. So if you wanted to contribute to your IRA account, you literally could drag and drop from one of those accounts that you linked. To me,
Nice.
that's really special, and we're really excited about it. And the feedback we've gotten to date has been really, really good. Moreover, as a clearing firm, right, it's even less likely that our competitors are offering that capability to their introducing firms. So we're really excited about that. It's work that is being undertaken right now, and we've got major investments in that, and also the insights that come to the advisor on behalf of that investor and that process, we think are also really, I mean, as you know, data is like gold, right?
Yeah.
And I think that information and those insights are really compelling. So we're pretty excited about where we're going with that.
I've had the same bank since I was 13 years old. But
Yeah.
that's compelling enough to think about switching. I mean,
Yeah.
honestly, that idea of making it so easy just to move money with my advisor, I've got to tell him, wire and ACH. I've got to tell him what to pull. I have to wait for it to happen. So that it seems trivial, but I know it's not. But there's another side to this too, because as a
Yeah.
consumer, I feel like my advisor doesn't know my bank accounts or my wife's bank accounts. They're missing out at looking at a bigger picture.
That's right.
And I talked to somebody recently. Boy, the name is skipping me right now. Max My Interest is the company, so forgive me for not mentioning his name. But he
Sure.
was talking about being able to help you use your bank savings and checking to maximize the interest you're getting, because that is a pocket of money people are just not showing to their advisors. So,
That's
do you
right.
think that's going to open it up? Would you guys do this and make it easier for advisors to help?
100% yes. I think again, there obviously there's a fine line between how we in the securities business are regulated and governed versus banks, and then if you want to extend the conversation to include mortgage and lending, right, which is all also through the same window. So there is attention to be paid to that. But look, what you just talked about is a great use case. Another great use case would be same scenario. You're the investor and I'm your advisor. I now have access to see, for instance, what your mortgage rate looks like because you've put it in the application, and perhaps there's an opportunity to get you a better rate, right? Which is going to save you a big pocket of money, which then we can work on where we deploy that money to create greater investment income or whatever your objectives might be. So that goes back to the insights and changing behavior. My view, and I think many in the industry share it, financial planning is as much about behavior management as it is about saving for the future, right? Many folks are out spending their future, and they just need governance.
Well, and we got to be careful of that, because I'm not asking my advisor to be my parent and tell me to stop spending at Costco, or that's too big of a car payment, or whatever it might be. I don't necessarily need that kind of oversight, but for those who are saving up a lot of cash, and I know many people like this, they save up their cash, they don't do anything with it. And the advisor doesn't have even the opportunity to know that they could be doing something with it. Right. So I think that's going to create some new opportunities for financial advisement. I think that's great. Look, I want to ask questions about AI, but before we do that, tell me more about your background, where you came from, what led you down to this path to get to Axos and say, let's go digital, et cetera.
Yeah, happy to. So as I mentioned, I was with BNY Mellon Pershing for about 25 years. Started as what we call an account manager, which is sort of that liaison role between service and relationship management and business development. Prior to that, I was not in the industry at all, and so this was my third job in life, and I really was lucky that people in Pershing at that time took a chance on me. And, I clearly had sales and marketing background in other industries, but I had zero experience, no licenses in the industry. And so it was a big, big learning curve for me. But and I find this extends very much to just life, Rich. I think you probably would agree. There are things that you can teach people, and there are things that are sort of native in their makeup and in their chromosomes, right? And I felt like I could transition some of those skills to this business. So yeah, I came into this business 25 years ago. All of it was groomed through BNY Mellon Pershing, and I've been thrilled to be a part of the industry. And as I said, really, really lucky with lots of mentors and lots of coaches along the way, and I'm really thrilled to be here leading Axos and really looking to take the company to the next level. I think we've got some really unique opportunities to do that.
Now, Axos isn't a small company, but do you feel more nimble? Do you have more flexibility than you did before?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, just by the sheer nature of size and scope and scale, I think it's also, I mentioned culture before. People love to use the word. I tend to pick on it actually a little bit, but because I said it, I'll say it again here. It is a little bit of the way that we work, right? All of the leaders who report to our CEO of the bank are really expected to not just be managing the business and leading it, but to be in the business. Right. And working with teams. And that just caters so nicely to my sort of makeup as, I guess, what you'd call servant leadership style. I really dive in on that. And for me, because it was paid forward for me, I feel like I just have this big obligation to continue that for people in our business.
Yeah, that is my favorite style of leadership, and the one that I espouse for myself. Culture, I think, is such an important facet that a lot of leaders don't necessarily pay attention to until it's too late, or until they have a crisis they have to solve. My personal view is that culture drives the performance of both your internal operations and how your people work, but then reflects to the outside of how your customers experience working with you. Do you share that, or do you see culture playing a different role?
No, I think you're 100% right. I think I mean, again, it starts from the top, but it isn't only the responsibility of executives, right? An example would be employee engagement, right? It's certainly become, candidly, right, for most of our businesses, and certainly businesses in our industry, it has become a challenge, right? People have high degrees of fatigue. There's this thing we talked about earlier, which is this, not wanting to come back into an office and some firms pushing them back to the office, all of that. When you look at engagement, it really does start with culture, and it starts with leading from where you stand. And that's one of the things that I say to my team all the time is, look, it doesn't matter the title, it doesn't matter the role. Everyone has a responsibility to drive the business forward and to carry this culture forward, because you can see it. You can hear it in the voice of somebody who calls and asks about a check request. You can hear it, in a prospect meeting when they look around the room and they actually realize that you're having fun with each other, right? That's, to me, that's culture. And
Yeah.
it is not something you put on, on a website and then do something differently when you take it down.
Yeah, no
Yeah.
doubt. For the years that I've been building my company, now we're bootstrapped, so we started small and we worked our way up. We always tried to hire for culture first,
Yeah.
and it has really taken root because of that. And I think that has been a big part of our own success in helping our customers be successful, is they feel that culture when they interact with us. And I'm getting that sense from you. And honestly, I think I said this to you when we first met, that I haven't heard a bad thing about Axos. I just haven't. I've heard people who've loved working with you guys. And I mean, that to me shines what you guys are doing both inside and outside the company.
That's great. I'm really gratifying to hear that. I know we got work to do, so we're not going to rest on that laurel by any stretch of the imagination, because there's always plenty of work to do. And that's, I guess, the other part of this cultural thing, Rich, right? Is the spirit of continual improvement, right?
Yeah.
Continuous improvement. We just, as an industry, as a people, like myself, right? We have to constantly get better at what we do. And it's a full-time job unto itself, but certainly gratifying to hear, and we're going to strive to continue to achieve that level of appreciation in the marketplace.
Yeah. So that's a good segue into the future, which a lot of people think is AI. So I want to hear from your perspective. What impact do you think artificial intelligence is going to have on how you deliver customer experience or product or service?
Yeah. So I would say we're sort of in the third, fourth-ish inning of our journey on, harnessing AI to actually change and enhance the experience. Part of it, Rich, I think started, again, going back to our heritage as a digital bank.
Hmm.
Part of it is driving better, more efficient processes to help show up better for the consumer. So that's sort of, how do we consume artificial intelligence to drive efficiencies in process? As we grow and as we continue, and in particular in the securities business, I think it trends towards what kind of insights can we deliver and what's the value of those insights for all constituents, and we talked a little bit about this a moment ago, whether it's the investor or the consumer through the portals that we deliver, or the advisor or the firm through the other portals that we also deliver. But really, how do we create that meaningful connection between really all the constituents from all the way to the investor back to Axos Clearing?
Yeah.
That, to me, is where AI is going to have an impact. Look, some of it is to be determined, right? I think the regulators will continue to take a sharp look, as they should, right, at what the proper implementation or execution of AI will be. But we're already seeing massive impacts in the business. So we're starting really with more of the strategic insights and action
Mhm.
items that advisors can take and investors can take in terms of serving up offers based on data that we know about you, because you've asked us to follow it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So being part of a larger organization, is there a drive from the parent company, or is there a hesitation from the parent company on AI?
I would say there's certainly not a hesitation. I mean, we are without a doubt, we are as compliant and risk averse as any financial institution. You have to be these days.
Yeah, right.
Um, but so if anything, we're probably leaning in as much or more than most because of our digital sort of heritage. Um, and so I guess, I don't know, you could give me a B minus on progress at being in the third inning. Perhaps we got work to do, but I do think, I mean, we're actively leveraging it to the best of our abilities. I think we just want to make sure we've tested it, and that we can, when we make it available in whatever way that becomes, that it actually drives value, right?
Yeah.
Because to the point we talked about a couple of minutes ago, adoption is where it's at. So just rolling something out for the sake of doing so doesn't fit with our strategy.
No, and I think a lot of people just expect AI is at the front and center, but reality is you're getting it through your vendors as part of your operations. You're getting it through various efficiencies behind the scenes. You may not even know some of the AIs that are in play in an
Right.
organization, yet it's creating a better outcome overall. So
Yep.
we're definitely seeing that.
Yeah.
Um, David, we're getting close to the end here, and I have another question for you. But before we wrap this up, what's the best way for people to find and connect with you?
Oh, awesome. LinkedIn is a great way to connect with us. Me specifically, we're out there pretty heavily social these days as well. Certainly, axosclearing.com that you mentioned at the top of the meeting here is a great way to do that. I'd look to those two primarily, and we'd love to get in contact. We have lots of folks, ready, willing, and able, and interested in connecting with all of your listeners.
Yeah. Well, and I don't mean to mention names or events, but you're also, I mean, you're the head of the company. You're out at an event right now
I
and
am.
you're out in the public, which I love. I love seeing leaders do that.
Yeah, it is kind of what we talked about a little bit ago. I've been in this thing for so long. It feels at these events oftentimes like a reunion, and that's what makes this business fun. It really, I mean, in the end, it's perhaps a little cliche, but it is about the people, and I feel like that's the best way that any of us can stay really in close touch with what people really think and what they really need.
I didn't imagine that outcome when I started my company, but I'm loving that now. I do.
Yeah,
When I
yeah.
go to out and I see people, I've known them for 10 years or more. It's an amazing feeling. All right,
I
here comes my
totally
last
agree.
question. So,
Okay, sir.
who has had the biggest impact on your leadership style and how you approach your role?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm going to name one person, but before I do that, as I said a moment ago, I really am uh, almost overwhelmed about the level of care and feeding that I've been given from people in this industry, including you having this conversation, right? It's just such a neat place for me to be. And I never really would have imagined the kind of friends and mentorship and guidance and learning that I've been able to accumulate over all these years, which is why I have such a strong, responsibility to feel like you do, that we need to pay it back and pay it forward. If I was to pick one person who is unfortunately left us way too early. The gentleman's name is Scott Monroe, and he was my direct supervisor for many years at Pershing, and was really responsible for bringing me there. And so when I say he gave me a shot at something that perhaps I didn't deserve, perhaps I did, don't know. His leadership style, Rich, was sort of speak softly but carry a big stick kind of mentality. He was
Mhm.
absolutely my Sherpa, and just a genuine gentleman and a key results driver in the space, and really taught me a lot about how to be a father and a man and a leader. And so he's somebody that I would put right up there as probably the one person that I would cite as creating a lot of the ways that I approach the business and leadership.
You really touched me by saying that he helped you be a better father and a man, not just a better leader.
Yeah,
Um, I know there's a lot of talk around gender these days, but honestly, as men, we have to learn how to be men. And
yep,
it's nice to hear that you had a mentor to help you with that. I've had a few myself that have helped me get to that point too. Man,
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. It touches me too, man.
Well, hey, I don't want to wrap this up. I think we could talk for a long time, but I try to keep our podcast on time here. So I want to give a huge thank you to David Crow, the president of Axos Clearing, for being on this episode of The Customer Wins. Go check out Axos's website at axosclearing.com. And don't forget to check out Quick at quickforms.com, where we make processing forms easy. I hope you enjoyed this discussion. We'll click the like button, share this with someone, and subscribe to our channels for future episodes of The Customer Wins. David, thank you so much for joining me today.
Rich, it was my sincere pleasure. I really appreciated it. It's always great to see you. Thanks again.
Thanks for listening to the Customer Wins podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.